Hello and welcome to Changemakers Show, where we speak with inspiring and influential changemakers and the people who support them, live, up close, and personal. So get cozy and get ready to listen to our changemakers' stories and advice. Ask your burning questions live and get inspired by their impact so you can be and bring the change you wish to see in the world too. Now let's get started with today's show. Hi there, Henrik. Thanks so much for being with us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, feedback there from Facebook, but that means we are live, so that's perfect.
Excellent.
So thanks so much for joining us. I know it's very late in the world where you are, and it's early for me, so I'm glad we were able to find this sliver of time to be together for the show. So I'd love for you to just take a minute and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Henrik Saetre. Together with my wife, I run Mamahuhu Online, which is the worldwide online part of the fashion brand Mamahuhu. And that's an ethical fashion brand that operates in Colombia, in Spain, and also then worldwide.
Fabulous. So you're, and we're going to get more into the model and your artisans that you work with, the makers of the shoes. And so they're mostly in Colombia, but have you expanded to Spain? Is that a new kind of market?
Yeah. So how to say, originally it's, and we'll get into that more later, I guess. But at first it was only in Colombia. And it was sort of a very specific Colombian thing. But then we realized that there are artisans, worldwide who need the type of support that we can give and that can make the type of product that we want to sell. So we've started opening up new areas. So we're now cooperating with some in Spain. We've looked at some in Greece, and we also have plans to look further.
Fabulous. So you guys have, been in the expansion phase. When did it all begin?
So it began about 6 years ago. It was started by Luis Moreno and his then partner Carolina. So Luis and we actually studied together in Shanghai. We did our masters in Chinese economy, of all things, at Fudan University. And at the time, Luis and Carolina, they decided they wanted to start Mamahuhu. And at first it sort of started because they wanted to make a fashion brand. They had an idea for the design of our Colorinas shoe, our most popular shoe. And they decided to go ahead and make it. And they actually looked at a lot of different ways of having the shoes made in different factories, but they never really found something that matched what they wanted in terms of quality, in terms of what the working conditions were, things like that. And actually they were on holiday to Bogota, Colombia, which is where Carolina is from. And they were walking in the streets, just enjoying the beautiful city. And they saw a guy sitting, they saw a guy sitting, working as a cobbler on the street. And they went over, started talking to him, and it turns out that he's actually a master artisan who used to work for a much bigger company. But when a lot of the production was moved out of Colombia to East Asia, a lot of people in Colombia lost their jobs. And they told him about the design, and they showed him the drawings, and he said, "Okay, give me this and come back tomorrow and I will have the shoe for you." And so they did. They came back the day after and he had the shoe for them, and it was exactly what they had drawn. It was exactly what they had imagined. And that was the first Colorinas made, and that was our red model. And then from then on, actually, they like at that point it was selling on Facebook to friends and families, and at at one point they realized that okay, they really had something on their hands, and then they did the first Kickstarter. So we've actually now had 3 successful Kickstarters with Mamahuhu. And so then they had the first Kickstarter, and they got money to set up the workshop and buy the material and the equipment and everything, and also to create then the first batch and open the first store. So that's sort of how they really got started. Yeah.
So, and that's great to hear the story, because I think so often social enterprises come, the ideas come in a lot of different ways, but often the magic comes together basically from the experience of the entrepreneurs and kind of the opportunities that arrive in front of them or that they seek out. But it's often just a little bit of coincidence and luck too. So for that first workshop, let's dive into that, because this is really unique about what you guys are doing. On your website, you share about the ethical business model and a lot of the different ways that you build impact into your business. But the best part, I think, is your teach a man to fish model with your artisans. So can you share more about how that works? Because you're actually the first social enterprise I've seen take kind of the somewhat known employment social enterprise model and take it to another level. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So how to say, it's in some way, like now it's such a big part of who we are. But it's, how to say, in some way it's sort of, in some way it also happened by chance.
Right.
Because if Louis and Carolina had found the perfect factory, maybe Colorina's would have been made in factories. But the thing was that they got the perfect shoe from a master artisan, and still all our shoes are handmade. Every shoe is handmade. So in some way it actually just made business sense, and it also, and it sort of just turned into an ethical business by itself, because because it makes sense to us.
It made sense.
It's
like
which doing the right thing. It makes sense in sort of not just in the marketing wise or anything like that, but it's something that we have sort of throughout the whole business. But yeah, on how we sort of develop that. So the way it happens, like for example, now we always have a lot of artisans who would like to work with us because they know the reputation. There are many more people with skills than we are able to help at the moment. But what we do is that when we find somebody that we really want to work with, we give them the microfinancing, the loan, which they pay back in products. And this is then used to buy the, to set up the workshop, to buy the tools they need, to buy the material, to hire the workers they need. So they get set up. And then we also provide them with the training, for example, within everything from accounting to getting insurance to keeping the books and planning for planning for buying material. Like the thing is, a lot of the people, a lot of the master artisans before, like they're master of their craft, which is making beautiful leather products. But for most of them, they go from being an employee and then through working with us, they become employers. So they don't work for Mamahuhu. They work for themselves with, and through our support. So they become entrepreneurs in some way as well. And I think anyone who has, been doing something entrepreneurial know that there is about 1 million jobs you need to do when you are an entrepreneur. And for a lot of them, you don't have the skills before you actually do it. So it's sort of like you have to learn on the job. And that's, I think, maybe is one of the most important things that we provide, is the help with this. So you can think of it a little bit like an incubator in Silicon Valley, where people come in that has some skills, they have an idea. Here it is that they would like to have their own workshop. They want to run their own like shoe production company or bags or whatever it is. And they come in, they get financing, they get the training, they start the company, they work together with us. But what we are also working towards is that they sort of spin out and become completely independent companies, working with other brands as well, not just Mamahuhu. So that's when we know that we have really succeeded, is when, even if Mamahuhu suddenly is gone, all the artisans, they still have work. They still have the value that they can bring to other companies. So most of the artisans now also work with other companies aside from Mamahuhu. And that's what we mean with sort of, you can give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime, because they're not dependent on us.
That's fantastic. And you help with a lot of the barriers that someone would have to opening up their shoe production workshop. And also one of the biggest ones is customer, like some cash flow coming in. So I think it's really neat how you marry all those pieces together and help get them set up. And then obviously you are purchasing product from them, which helps them grow and gain confidence and get going.
We don't help them find other customers, but I think that just
you don't want them to be too busy, right? They need to still have time for you guys. Yeah, but that's great. And so how do you measure some of this impact? And I know that piece is maybe the main piece, but you have some other focuses around, the leather industry and things like that. But how do you think about impact in your business? Do you measure it? Do you have feedback loops?
It's a very interesting question. And it's a question that we keep asking ourselves all the time. The thing is, we are still a very small company. And even though we are growing very well, we talk about this quite frequently. So the short answer is we don't measure it enough. Simply because we are so busy running the company day to day. We constantly have 10 idea projects that we want to do that has to do with measuring the impact. So for example, we know the amount of artisans that work with us, right? So that is that's one measure of impact. But we also know, intuitively, we know subjectively that them working with us also has an impact on their close family. Maybe it also has an impact on their extended family. Maybe it also has an impact on their neighborhoods. But this is something that we've not been able to really look into yet. And it's something that we very, very much want to look into. And it's also... This is something that we've not been able to really look into yet. And it's something that's getting a little feedback.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No worries. No, so that's one part that I really want to know more about. Then it's also, and this is the most important part for us when it comes to the ethics, is that is the impact we have for the artisans that we work with. But aside of that, we also have eco-certified leather to make sure there's no Chrome 6, that it's safe for humans to use. We also only use leather that comes from food production. So animals aren't being killed to make Mamahuhu shoes. It's more that in Colombia, there's a huge beef industry as well. So it's not I'm not saying that the leather would be wasted if we didn't buy it. There's a lot of other people who would love to buy this leather too. It's, among the top quality in the world. But I think it's something that people don't always keep in mind, that it would be crazy to kill an animal for the leather. It's more about using the byproduct from the food industry. So this is something that it would be very interesting for me to see the impact of, but I'm a little bit unsure how. I'm more unsure on how to do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up too about the fact, even when impactful practices and decisions are kind of built into the business as a whole, you're still running the business, and there's a lot of day-to-day management and almost the impact measurement or tracking or all those projects that entrepreneurs want to build into the business to get more information and reporting. It can fall to the bottom of the list sometimes because it's important, but it's not urgent like everything else, right? So it's an interesting balance there.
And it's not just for SMEs either. Like I've worked previously for like Fortune 50 companies, and the thing is, and I mean it's no secret, it's just not something that's widely talked about. But the point there is also they don't have time to do their projects either. Like there's always a million ideas there, and you can have 120,000 employees worldwide, but there's still the most of it is not going to get done when it comes to these things, because unfortunately, it's not mission critical. So
it's funny you use that term mission critical because we're talking kind of about the mission piece, but it's true. I mean, that's I guess the best part about having a model where the impact is 100% built in. The more shoes you sell, the more artisans you can help get set up and provide that flow in the economy. So, I mean, the measurement is one piece, but the fact that it's all built into the business, that's important too. And as the business grows, the impact grows.
Like I somehow feel like, of course we want to know, but it's mainly that's a little bit for vanity, or, like it's not really going to change the reality. If we know exactly what impact we're making, we would still be making the same impact, if you know what I mean. But it's definitely on the to-do list.
Right. Yeah. It's just more information, right? As a business, the more information you have, then you can use it or not use it. It kind of depends, right?
There's enough information.
Right. Always lots.
Yeah.
So what are some of the obstacles that you guys have encountered growing over the last 6 years, and what advice would you have to other social entrepreneurs?
It's a good question. There's so many. Like, of course, how to say, like getting customers is also, how to say, getting noticed and getting customers is, I think, always the biggest thing. I so maybe we talk about that later, or if I just
let's dive in right now. That's great.
Yeah, because I think that's what's the most interesting thing. And I was corresponding with an ethical blogger here. Now the name slipped my mind, but we were writing about there's so many ethical businesses starting now, but there's so many ethical businesses closing. Right? There's so many people are failing left and right. And as I say, and it's sort of, I think what she wrote is that it has a lot of people doubting if this is something real, or is this a fad? Is this, something that is just a wave and then it passes over? But I really don't think so. The thing is, for me, I care about ethical ethical business, and I also care very much about entrepreneurship. It's something that I've been very interested in for many years. So I also read extensively about it because it's a passion of mine, and it's very important to keep in mind that like 9 out of 10 companies fail. That's not just in the ethical space; it's everywhere. So I think it's amazing that there are so many new companies being started, but you have to keep in mind, or not you, but people have to keep in mind that it's still hard, even if you catch sort of now the wave of people becoming more and more aware of buying ethical, the impact they have on the world, that it's possible to actually have a strong impact even with your day-to-day purchases. even though this is happening, you still have to have a solid business. You have to do it the right way. You have to make the right decisions. You have to have a good product. And then back to selling. So for us, that's definitely been, the biggest challenge is getting people to notice us. And what we figured out there, the way to sort of conquer this is to realize that people really care deeply, but you have to be willing to talk about what you stand for. You have to actually stand for something, because I think there's a lot of brands now who some, the very big brands, it seems they don't really stand for anything anymore. They're just so big and they have so much marketing money, it doesn't matter. But there's also a lot of ethical brands, I think, are a little bit flip-flopping between talking about what they do ethically, that they are an ethical brand, and also trying to be sort of like a normal fashion brand. And for us, this was something we also asked ourselves when we were sort of launching worldwide is, okay, should we online try to be, just a fashion brand so we can sort of hit everybody, right? Or do we more talk about the ethical side? And what we realized is that, that's our DNA. That's what makes us special. And that's what people care about. And then it's about, like I mentioned, it's about doing the right thing. To us, that's definitely the right thing to do. So we have the ethos of doing the right thing that sort of goes throughout the whole business. But this is also a big part of how we interact with customers. So if we have, because you always get a ton of email, right? And in some way, every case is unique. So it's very, very useful to us to have that sort of guiding line to do the right thing. That doesn't always mean that if somebody says, okay, I want you to send me something for free, that we would do that. It's, doing the right thing is also making sure that we have a healthy company so we can continue supporting artisans and all the employees. But it does mean that we do our very best to take care of our customers and our, partners and people who work with us. And I think when you figure out what it is you really stand for and you start to tell people about that, they will listen. And you have to figure out where you can find those people. But when you do, and you tell them what you stand for, then you will find your customers. So that's, I think that's something that really changed it for us when we realized that.
To kind of be yourself and don't be afraid to tell your story, like your identity as a company, as you said, it's all built in there. So
yeah, sounds a bit quirky when you say it like that, but I think that is it. Yeah, it sounds like a rom-com movie or something, right? Just be yourself. Just make sure that you be the best self you can be.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. And bringing up, what you stand for. I've had this discussion a lot with different social entrepreneurs. I mean, that's key to connect with people. But also at the end of the day, you need good shoes, right? Because you're never going to have a repeat customer if someone loves you or what you're about, and then they buy a shoe and they don't like it falls apart or something, then that kills the relationship faster than anything else. So I think it's like you bring people in with the identity, with the story, and then you keep them with the amazing value that you provide, whatever, if it's a shoe or a service, right?
Yeah. Now I like to, I forget where I read it, but I like the saying of, you can have, I'd say you have good quality, you have, you have speedy delivery, and you have good customer service, or a nice relationship, and you can have sort of 2 out of 3, right? No, sorry. Like you have quality, cost, and service, like the relationship, and you can have 2 out of 3. But there's almost no company in the world that ever does all three. You know, so how to say, that's why you have a lot of people who are really, really skilled, and how to say, they are cheap, but unfortunately when you work with them, they are, you know, not very pleasant. Or you can work with somebody, but you have, you know, you can get good quality, but you have to pay a little bit more because they know what they're worth. And I think this is a little bit the same as well.
Some focus there for sure. So we actually had a question come in a bit earlier from Solène, my partner, the other half of Changemakers Association, and I missed it because I was didn't see it come in. But she was curious. Early on, you mentioned you guys did 3 Kickstarters over the period. So what was the approach doing 3 different ones? Was it launching new pieces of the business or new products, or because we've heard of a lot of people having, you know, one successful Kickstarter to launch, right? But then, I'm curious about the multiple pieces there.
No, it's a good question. We actually had 4 Kickstarters, but we had 3 that was successful. So the first one was to start up the company, to get the first shop, to get the sales, and then it's almost it might almost sound ridiculous or made up, but about a month and a half or something after the shop was opened, Louis and Carolina, they came to their shop on a Monday morning, and there was a big hole in the wall, and somebody had broken in and stolen everything. Even the cash register was gone, and all the shoes, everything. And that was sort of the rock bottom. That's the point where Mamahuhu was the closest to just stopping being, because in some way they lost everything. But they decided to keep on. They're both very, very mentally strong people. We sort of have to be, right? And together with family and help from friends, they very, very quickly set up a new Kickstarter where they launched towards the US. And they did a new, I'll just say this was also a successful campaign. And you can still see the video where they talk about this, about how the shop was broken into. And so they held a second successful Kickstarter campaign. They got the money, and with that, they delivered they got a lot of new customers in the US, and they got another, as I say, like the first shop opened, and this time they opened actually within a shopping mall. So, you know, it's even more secure. And from then on, it really started to grow quickly. And then they tried to do a third Kickstarter. But at that point, I think it was more, and we've talked about this a lot, like what was the difference, right? Why did that one not succeed? And I think part of it was there wasn't a huge focus on it. At that point, they already had several shops, and I thought, well, we've had 2 successful Kickstarter campaigns. Why don't we do another one? You know, it's
That's kind of a sales channel, right?
Yeah, you sort of think, I think maybe it's, you know, if you've done it twice, why not do it another time, right? I guess you'd think you can succeed, but there was nobody who could really pour in enough energy into the campaign at that time, so it wasn't successful. And then me and Effie, my wife, we joined Mamahuhu about 2 years ago to set up Mamahuhu Online. And then we decided to do another Kickstarter campaign to sort of kickstart this when we had the web page operational, and sort of to show that now we are doing worldwide sales. And what really made that successful was the energy that we were again, you know, able to put into it. Because for us, it's even though Mamahuhu had at that time been around for about 5 years or something, for Effie and I, this is still an entrepreneurial venture. because we come in as a new part. So in some way it's entrepreneurship, but it's not set up or funded by Mamahuhu in that way. So for us, we knew that, okay, doing this meant that, as I say, doing this was very important for us to be able to continue. And I don't know if you've been part of a Kickstarter campaign, but it's insane. Like the amount of energy you need to put into it is absolutely crazy. And it's like, I think it was the day after it finished, we both just fell sick for a week.
Pretty exhausting.
And I think that was the same with the campaign 1 and 2. You know, the first campaign was to start their company, so they really had that motivation, and the second one was to save their company, and that also then gave them the motivation to really go out, knock on doors, pick up the phone and ring people. And I think that's what a lot of people maybe don't really fully take into account when they start a Kickstarter campaign, is how professional you need to be about it, how good every part needs to be, and then how much you need to go out and sell, because you can't get 100% of a campaign from Kickstarter's audience. You need at least 30, 40, 50% of your funding goal from family, friends, or like ads, or like your community that you've already built up online. And then you can get maybe the last 10 to 50% from like the Kickstarter traffic. And I think it can be very hard to really understand that before you've sort of been through it.
Yeah, it's kind of an art, isn't it? It feels like there's a whole approach and things people have learned to do it better. So yeah, that's really fascinating to hear how that progression went. And we're glad that the second one helped save the business, and now you're here down the road. Yeah. So yeah. So just to wrap up, do you have any final pieces of advice or thoughts that you want to share with our community? So we have changemakers and aspiring changemakers from all over the world, and I think they're going to be really interested to hear how your journey has grown. But yeah, anything else you want to share?
I would say go and do it. Like it's never been more possible to have an impact and to become a successful entrepreneur as it is today. That does not mean it's easy. It's a lot easier to hold a steady job and to work for someone and get the paycheck. That is by far the easier option, because you have to work way, way harder for way less money for very likely a much longer time, working for yourself or doing entrepreneurship. But if you have something that you're really burning for, it's very, very possible to do it. And there are so many great tools out there to do it now. Like all you need is to really create a product, and you can use tools like Shopify, which we really, really like. Neither me nor Effie know how to code, but we've made the whole Mamahuhu online webpage ourselves. And how to say, it has a very high conversion rate without us being able to code. So if we can do it, I'm pretty confident other people can do it too. So it's never been easier than it is right now. And it's, even though it's really hard, it's also just so much fun. And knowing that you have a positive impact, to me, that's really what is motivating, and such a difference to being sort of the small cog in the huge industrial machine of a gigantic corporation. That's something I really, really enjoy, and it's definitely worth fighting for.
Well said. It's so true. And I think those of us who are in the middle of it would wholeheartedly agree. And yeah, it's tough, but it's worth it, right? So that's why we need to connect with each other and hear stories from other entrepreneurs, so we can keep inspired. You know, if we're having a down day, we can hear stories like yours and get a little bit reinvigorated and keep trucking, keep pushing. So thank you so much for sharing today. Is there any way that people can help you out, or any way they can get in touch with you and actually check out what you're up to? If you can let us know the best ways to get in touch.
Yeah, so I mean, the best place is mamahuhu.online, which is our web store. So the best way to keep up with what's going on and getting involved is definitely to go there, and also to subscribe to our newsletter. Or even people can just write directly to us at henrik@mamahuhu.co. I don't know if you can put that up. That's
I can add it to the comments.
HNRIK@mamahuhu.co. Because we strive really hard to answer every email we get, and actually when people sign up to our newsletter, we ask people to write into us, and like in the first email they get, we have written there that we would love to hear one thing they are struggling with at the moment, one thing that's a challenge of them currently. And we love when people reply to that, because we get to hear all sorts of interesting stories from around the world, from people who are about to go and study internationally, to people who are using spiritualism to manifest new footwear.
Interesting. You get everything, right?
Yeah, and we love those stories, because we work remotely. It's, as I say, in some way, the communication with our customer is what keeps us grounded, and we really enjoy it.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. So we encourage anybody listening to check you guys out and follow your progress, and maybe get a pair of shoes. And also, if anybody watching really enjoyed this chat, this interview, we'd love for you to share it with others. So you can, if you're on Facebook, hit share at the bottom of the video and share it with your page or your friends, your network. And if you're watching this on the Changemakers Association website and want to get notified when we have new episodes coming out every couple weeks, you can go to changemakersassociation.com/show, and you can see all of the past wonderful entrepreneurs we've interviewed, and also sign up for updates on our newsletter too. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much, Henrik, for being here. I know it was a very late interview for you, but it worked out perfectly. So we appreciate your time. And to everybody else, we'll see you next time for the Changemakers show. Okay, bye.
Bye.